Happy New Year,
Happy New Year.
2025. And this is our second attempt of Two Nerds and a Mic. Listen, my friend, how was your holidays?
It was good, good. Not as relaxing as I would like, because, I have too many kids for that. But it was good, it was good. A
I,
lot less meetings.
I have only one kid and it was not relaxing either, so I cannot use that as an excuse. I think family could be sometimes stressful,
Yeah.
just as much as work can. But no, my holiday was good. But I found that coming back to work, I thought I'd be back refreshed and excited, and I'm just slow like a turtle. So I don't know why that happened. Well, let's follow up on our last conversation. I have had some time to experiment. You have had some time to experiment with new models and new techniques of writing code with models. So I'm gonna start first with the good news. I used Aider Architect. Have you used Aider Architect or heard of it?
No, I
All
haven't
right.
used it.
So Aider Architect mode is really good. Aider Architect mode allows you to use two models. It could be the same model, but you can use two different models, right? It will have one model be the architect. So when you ask it to write some code, the first model will sort of generate the architecture and the plan for it. And the second model will do the editing and code defs and code gen.
That's a pair programming in a single package.
Yeah, it's pretty good, right? And it is building on the React paper. So this is a paper I think that was published in 2012, and then it was revised later. And the paper said that you do not ask the model for a solution and that's it, and evaluate the model based on that, because models can get lost. Like the way they go and prioritize tokens and next token and next token, they take one path kind of thing. And and then they found that if a model took a path and you realize that the path is not really correct, and you even try to correct the model will somehow become like an opinionated person. Like, no, that's the way it is. It gets a little bit ideological about it. Funny how they are slightly becoming like us. But then they said the best way to do it, and also if you write code, nobody writes code like that. You don't just write your code in one shot. You write and rewrite and rewrite, right? That's what Andrew Ng as well brings in his presentations about agents. So the React paper basically said that the best way is to ask the model to create a plan for the problem. So instead of telling the model, build me code to write, let's say, a Next.js app that uses Google authentication, which is the discussion I'm going to talk to you about now, and then see what the model will do, you would break that down into two questions to the LLMs. The first LLM question would be, what are the architecture security requirements to create an app with Next.js or with any software, right? Mm-hmm. And then you take that as the output of that as an input. And it's like, given these requirements, what would be the best libraries to use to do that? Now that I know that, given that NextAuth is the best security library and these security requirements, build me an app, build or modify the existing app. And then the fourth agent will take the existing app and does the code generation and code editing. So this is where Cursor AI and Aider and all these models have been working. So Aider has been really good in doing that. But Aider did something really cool lately. They added the option of separating your code editing from reasoning, and it was pretty neat. So basically, you say, I want to use O1 Preview as an architect, and and Claude 3.5 Sonnet as a code generation. Or I want to use Claude 3.5 Sonnet as an architect, and something else as a generation. And then they ran comparisons in their benchmarks. And when you see it here, so you see like the blue is O1 Preview as architect. And if the line is dashed, that means it is used without architect. So for example, if you look here, I don't know if you can see. Can you see my cursor? I think you can see my cursor. No?
No, I can't.
No, all right. So if you look at Cloud 3.5 Sonnet, which is the cyan light or like light green, in the dashed one, which is called baseline for cyan, for 3.5, that's how good 3.5 Sonnet is. It is around 77.4%. But if you use Cloud 3.5 Sonnet as an architect with itself, it improved to 80.5. And here, O1 Preview is 79.7 if you use just O1 Preview to edit your code. But if you use O1 Preview as an architect and maybe O1 Mini, then you improve your benchmark to 85. So basically, by following that React model, so it was really cool, and I used it and I experimented. It's not very new. It's been 3 months, which is like now in AI world, that's legacy.
Yeah.
But it's really good, and I am noticing some good differences in it, but it is still how you write your prompts. You still need to be involved in that whole process. Now, what I wanted to talk to you about today, which was really interesting, is I have used before Cloud 3.5 Sonnet to build a Next.js app that creates a Google Auth button that allows you to use Google as an OAuth provider. It was pretty straightforward, amazing. 30 minutes, the whole thing was done, and I'm like, wow, I got to start a project for something that was going to take me maybe 2 hours. So it's like 4x, amazing, right? But you need to know what you're doing as well. Aider is amazing in a way. When I used the architect mode, it was really good because there was a chain of thought. And the code will tell me, like when I was using Aider and I was saying, here is what I want you to do, it not only created the code, right? But it also gave me suggestions. Let me see if I can share something else with you. I want to share with you a window, and that is the window. So if I can show you here my screen, it did some analysis, but then the cool thing is, and it did that, next auth secret, and it created that env local file. But then the interesting thing is that it gave me instructions. Not so it's going to generate code, but after you generate the code, you still need to do things. And it gave me the instructions on how to do it.
Yeah, no, that's very cool.
It's really nice. Like it says, like, go to your Google Cloud Console, click this, click that, find your secret. So it worked fantastic, right? And I was like very impressed, except that it failed. And previously it worked, and I'm like, I'm using Architect. I realized my mistake. Before I used the vanilla project, and this time I did not use a vanilla project. This time I used an example from Next.js because I wanted to start the auth example from scratch. And if you look at the example, and then I was like, okay, I need to look at that example from Next.js. I need to see what is going on. Like, why is this a problem? And I looked at the example. If I go Next.js examples, and you look at the auth example, which I was using, and I looked at the package.json, and I think this is the issue. It is using a beta version.
That would do it.
And the way Next.js is suggesting how you do authentication is different than the example. The example is using a little bit of a more advanced way. So anyways, this is not new. Everybody knows that. If the model hasn't seen the data, hasn't seen this new library, the model doesn't know how to react to it.
Yeah, and it happens with architects as well, right? It's like if humans would do that.
Yeah.
Right. If you have someone who's very trained at a certain thing, their heads will immediately go to that place.
Upgrading your technology is an important part of the life cycle of every app. migrations are notoriously, especially when there is a breaking change. Like you know how React changes everything, or Java Spring Boot changes everything, or you were talking to me about Rust library you were using.
Yeah, recently I was during the break experimenting with a new framework that is a framework that creates desktop applications called Tori. Tori is kind of a Electron replacement, right? It allows you to build native applications that are a mix of native system language code and some web technologies like JavaScript on
Yep.
top, using web views and things like this. And the system language they use is Rust. So I used Cursor I was eager to try my hand at a little Rust. As you know, I'm a C++ dev. I have been like some decades ago, and I was eager to get my hands on something substantial around Rust, so I could like get my teeth on something cool. And started doing this and helped by Cursor, and it didn't work. And I think there's two things. One of the things is the thing that you were talking about. Tori recently, like a few months ago, released its version 2. It has been in beta for a little bit. Version 1 is pretty widespread, but version 2 is kind of brand new. The model didn't know the first thing about it. It kept giving me wrong suggestions about how to do things, or APIs, or hallucinating libraries that didn't exist and APIs that didn't exist. It was very unproductive when compared to something it knew well, like React and TypeScript. But it was aggravated by the second problem, that I was not familiar with it. I was not familiar enough with the thing
to debug the problem. Yeah, and that's also my problem here as well, right? And now I'm thinking, okay, so that means that we always talk about, do we need less devs or more devs, and that's a discussion, and I'm not sure I have an answer for it. But what it looks to me now is that the barrier to entry, like the bar to how deep you know a framework, is much higher if you're using AI. Like there is this idea like, oh, if I'm using AI, then I don't have to be as a good developer, or I don't need to know that much about coding. And I'm thinking it's probably quite the opposite. Like now you actually need to be very deep into the code if you want to use API like effectively, because then you can even, I know, like if I'm a Google architect, a cloud architect, I'm going to say, my prompt is going to say, use Cloud Identity Federation to give a GitHub repo access over Cloud Run, and limit the identity access to only that function. But if I don't know anything about Google Cloud, then I'm going to say, I want to have Google Cloud. I want to authenticate using my GitHub actions into Google Cloud to deploy something to Cloud Run. And in that, I found, like, I had a video about that before, where if you give it the naive prompt, it will use the older, not recommended way of Google. It will try to use, a different way of authentication. But the new one, Cloud Identity Federation, which is the new one, it's not very new. Like, it's been here for more than 2 years or 3 years. But a lot more examples are with the old way, right, of using, identities. So the model will default go to that. So a naive prompt that's just the first thing that I have in mind. The second thing is, if I am Vercel and I'm building Next.js and I'm releasing a new Next.js, do I need to work with OpenAI and Anthropic to make sure that when I release that new thing, their models know about? Like it's very interesting, right?
Yeah. I've been thinking about it, right? Because this problem really lighted a spotlight on this, right? The problem I had with Tori. The solution I usually have for this, like when I'm coding and I know the AI doesn't know about this new version of the API, what do? I go there I copy the documentation of the API I want to use, create a markdown file on my code, add that markdown file to any of the queries I'm making to the AI, and say, oh, by the way, use this API here. Kind of.
And so you're ragging it yourself.
I'm ragging it myself. Exactly.
And it's extra money on your behalf.
Right? It's but I mean, that's helped by the fact that I understand how it works, and I'm trying to rely less and less, and that's something I usually tell people it's a very smart thing to do. I try to rely less and less on the inherent knowledge of the model, if it's a generic model.
So it becomes like a super duper incredibly productive code editor.
Yeah, right? Because that's how AI is supposed to be used if you're using a generic model, right? Is that you can trust.
In January 11 at 54 a.m. in the morning.
Yes.
Like, as we speak, because like you never know.
Yeah, but there's a limit. I mean, there's a limit to how many parameters and weights you can add to an AI, right? So it will never be as rich.
11
on January, yeah.
10:55 a.m. Because I mean, you got quantum computing. DeepSeek has been trained. From what I heard, DeepSeek version 3 was trained for like $8 million, which is considered like a crazy small budget in the training of models. So no, I like currently that's the state where we are, and that was just the thing that was going on my mind actually after I've gone through that experiment. The other thing that I think would also be interesting is I can now build a very well secured app that uses OAuth and deploy it to like Cloud Run or Lambda or something, or Vercel for that matter, using Next.js. Very fast, very, very fast. And if you belong to a large enterprise and you have lots of developers and they wanted to use OAuth, you generally had to have some sort of a layer in the front of them to handle OAuth for them, to make sure that the session tokens does not leak into the browser. Not that it's the end of the world, but security teams frown upon that. And I have been slapped on the fingers a few times, on the hands, like, don't do that. Anyways, I digress. But now you can do it very easy, you can do it very fast, and you can have a very quick model coming out. And you can build starter, you can build templates that allow teams to work. And the productivity of the development teams, I guess, is not the critical path anymore. We used to have that talent critical path, and we optimized everything for lack of talent, especially in enterprises in Canada. We optimize for lack of talent. Let's make sure that we can make the change only once because we don't have enough people to make 5 changes.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's a good description for it, right? Because it happens on UX, for example, with design systems and design, right? You have designers that has guidelines passed on to them that have been decided elsewhere and packaged as a design system that they now need to use. And
I'm not talking about design systems. I'm talking about like building layers of code and infrastructure and platforms.
That's exactly the same thing, right? So you have decision making that happen in another layer of the organization that you can imagine it was designed to reduce your participation on the decision making.
I think what we're discussing here is a difference between, like, authoritarian regimes, democracies, and anarchy.
There's a little bit of that,
right? So if everyone decides to make their own decisions without any guardrails, that's sort of an anarchy in your system. And nobody likes that. Successful software companies have democracies. So they have guardrails, but there's a lot of freedom internal in the teams to make their decisions. And that's sort of how they improve and innovate and become bigger. I find enterprises are more on the authoritarian part. Like, this is the only way you're going to do this. And the reason they do it is so afraid because we don't have enough very smart, talented people to make the right decisions. So we're going to make all the decisions for them. All what you need to do is add text boxes and buttons and put code in the database. But you don't touch the database. We'll give you the database. You don't do authentication. We'll do authentication for you. You don't do this, we're going to do it for you. And as a result, the onboarding and creation of applications becomes ridiculously, there's a high friction for it, right?
Yeah, but I think what your analogy is perfect for the government system, right? Because the what happens on a democracy is that you don't decide where the money goes. You only decide who decides where the money goes. And you hope that the package you bought that allows the oil to be
Well, no,
cheaper.
no. Now we're getting political science. Let's not do that because we have elections in Canada. Let's stay.
No, but that's the thing. Like on an enterprise, you're trying to find a way to give people the ability to pivot when they meet a different requirement, without giving them the burden of having to figure everything out again all the time.
Yeah, but that doesn't happen. And the reason it doesn't happen is because there is not enough software skills we have. And I think the AI is fixing that for the enterprise in Canada. Because in Canada, all the skills have been already skimmed by the FANGs. And then the dropout of the FANGs will go work for the startups. And the dropout of the startups will go, maybe work for the Microsofts and consulting companies. And then the dropouts of the consulting companies and Microsofts will work for IBM. And the dropouts of IBM will continue to work for the rest of the enterprise. And the dropouts of the enterprise will work for the government. And I am sorry. I mean, maybe I'll get into trouble saying that. But that's the reality of the IT market in Canada. Right? Like not in Europe, but in Canada, for sure. That's the case. Maybe not in Brazil, not in Egypt, but in Canada, that's 100% the case. So I think we optimize for that. Back to my point. I created that very quickly. I know many enterprises that pay a lot of money for platforms that provide that, OIDC, OAuth, layer. And you can Google them online, and there's a ton of them. And now I think there is a disruptive element to that will affect a lot of companies that are making libraries that built their model around you need to scale and you don't have enough software development horsepower. And the fact that now AI is here, we have a lot of software development horsepower.
Yeah, I think you're right. But I don't think the motivation is the lack of talent as much as it is opacity on needs. Like you don't know what you need to do from an organization perspective, right? So you want to centralize that in a specialized organ that can serve that thing to other people, because you don't know exactly how that's gonna go. Like you're not gonna have the visibility on whether or not that ad hoc solution that team provided is good. And you want to have more control over it. And I think the Achilles heels of enterprise is the lack of a good feedback loop from.
But feedback loops require fast experimentation.
Yeah.
If you don't have a fast experimentation, you have nothing to feedback on it.
Yeah, and the communication is
it's
always
like I mean, this is why enterprise architect go to LinkedIn right now and look for jobs with enterprise architect to GAF certified. There is not much. I mean,
I think AI can help with the communication as well, right?
That's a different story. Yeah, I don't know how it will. So, anyways, that was just my holiday experimentation, learning more about agents and how AI thinks and the code implication for it. But so I don't know what will happen in the next 3 months, because we're expecting super powerful new models in the spring.
Maybe. Is that I'm a bit skeptical about the speed of the evolution of models.
Yeah.
And what they can deliver. I mean, you've seen how they improved over the past 6 months and what the impact was on the actual results. It's not the models are much better, but the impact is not. It's better, but it's not that much better when compared to the impact of other things that happened around those models.
I agree with that. Like I think the models are now gaining advanced skills that are not even in use in day-to-day business. Like they're really good at at cracking, like O3 is really good at cracking math problems that I don't know how would that affect the enterprise. So I don't know if an enterprise would choose O3 because it's that much better. But like you said, the ecosystem of using the models effectively to build solutions, that is evolving quickly. Y Combinator, I think, are saying that they have a Cambrian explosion of companies that are trying to build things. But at the same time, companies are being killed every day by development. I mean, I don't know how long Grammarly can last. I don't know how long Google Translate is 100 times worse than what ChatGPT can do or Cloud can do. Like the translation is ridiculously different.
Yeah, and I think we have an LLM shipping in Google Chrome as of the last version, and they had a very hard problem. That how do you ship an LLM on a browser, right? So they shipped a very small model with the browser that can do some specialized tasks. One of these tasks is language detection, and I think they plan to have translation there. So you're gonna have translation local
I
to the
look
browser.
forward to that. I look forward to us having specialized, smaller models. So DeepSeek 3, I wanted to download it to run it locally. It's like 873 gigabyte. So first, I don't know if my internet provider, I need to talk to them before I do something like that. Probably, I don't know. The second is I need to buy a big hard drive. And the third is like, well, I don't know what kind of NVIDIA, or however you pronounced it, NVIDIA like processor I need, and fanning and cooling equipment. But I'm thinking that like it's because it's huge. I would like us to get because I'm a software developer. I want a software developer specialized. So currently all the models are generalized. And it fits the model generators well because then you always need them to run the model for you and you pay them for it. Maybe if Olama starts creating specialized models, language detection, not even software development, like Python model, right? Like React front-end model. That's an interesting development. If we get that, that would be really cool. And then the model will be cheaper, faster, and maybe you can buy it and run it in your machine, and then we're gonna get back into the old software licensing.
Yeah, that's the thing I'm expecting to happen, right? Because at some point, the curve for how much results you can get from this model for the $1 billion someone put on it this year is gonna kind of flatten out. And then what can you do? You get that model and you replace that training with some specialized training. And now it's going to be a super accurate React developer that doesn't know what time it is in Germany.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing, right? Like I think that's how models will evolve. They become like humans. I remember I had a problem with somebody in IBM long time ago, and that like I got called into like a very senior person office, and I was really frustrated. And he's like, "Calm down, Ahmed. You have to understand something. We hire people who write very good code, but they're not equally developed." And I think that is exactly the future of models that we want to look for. I hope I look for. I would like a model that is very good in writing React code and another model that is very good at reacting Python code, that if you ask it, what is 2 plus 2, maybe it doesn't know how to do it. I don't care, right? Like, and that model would be more efficient, but I don't know if that is even possible, or I don't know if even that is a field of research, because currently everything is in the L. The first L is large.
Yeah, but this is part of the roadmap. When you want to deploy an AI product, you kind of do this. Like you start like experimenting, you do your prompt engineering, you look at the use cases you want to provide for your users, all the things you're trying, all the questions you want to answer, and then you start training your model to be better at those, to increase the accuracy and the safety of your answers to your users, and make sure the wrong answers never happen. You need good monitoring, but then you unavoidably, I mean, I'm not going to say unavoidably, but you would want to improve the rate of right responses for your users, that if you're using a generic model, it's probably not going to be zero.
No, I agree. All right, my friend. Happy New Year.
Cool.
It is
Happy
nice
New
to
Year.
talk to you again. just a thought. How about next week or next time we meet? I am interested in in hearing your thoughts on the full software development world we have.
Yeah, we started a little bit today with this, right?
Well, I'm talking more like the product now. There is planning, there is doing the right thing, there is deployment, there is monitoring, the 5 pillars of well architected cloud model.
Cool. Cool. Let's talk about it.
Take
Fantastic.
care.
Cool. Take care, man.